Wow, the last almost 2 weeks have been okay. Um, Sorry, I'm in the dark trying to go to bed, so again, you won't see anything here, but I would say almost okay because for the most part, feeling mom's presence on Tuesday after grief group and after talking to my godmother really helped me kind of preserve myself this week. And I've been just taking that with a grain of salt and kind of blissfully letting it be my happiness for the last almost 2 weeks. But yesterday and today have been very difficult because I've been thinking a lot about mom again. And, you know, somebody passing makes you question things, makes you ask questions about your own life and your own potential death. Or I mean, it's not really potential, everybody dies, so it's we are living to die. We have, as we are born, a termination date, like an expiration date, just like anything else. And it's kind of scary to think about that, and it really makes me wonder if it's going to be painful, if I'm going to hurt, in my body, in my mind, in my soul. Will I have regrets? Everything, right? And so I've been trying to reach toward my religion as much as possible and really trying to find ways that my religion teaches for me, to really accept death and to not necessarily understand it better, but to get in the habit of thinking every day is my last, just in case it is. And it's a scary way to live. It's like you're living on the edge. I have a lot of anxiety right now because that's exactly what the fear of death produces, right? I never really had a fear of death. I one time I thought about it like too long, and it scared me. It scared the bejesus out of me. I just had this like shocked feeling and then like deep regretful sadness, and I couldn't go to bed that night. I stayed up, I think, for like 3 days because I was just trying to calm down from this idea that I will end at some point. Like, my life will be done. I will cease to exist in this particular physical body at some point. And that realization was one of the biggest parts of why I decided that religion was something that I did want to have in my life, because I'm smart enough to know that I don't know what happens after we leave these bodies. But I also hope and I pray, pun intended, that there is something different after this, that there is another continuation, that I don't just cease to exist and that's it. And it scares me, because what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my soul? What does that mean for my memories, the people that I knew and loved and cared about? What does that mean for, for just everything that I stand for, everything that I am? It's scary to think about, and it kind of gives me like goosebumps and butterflies in my stomach, and it kind of makes my heart pace really fast with anxiety to think about at some point I will not exist. And that the hardest part, I think the scariest part, I won't exist in this body anyway, but the scariest part is not necessarily what comes after, but the threshold that's in between, right? The actual act of dying is really, to me, the scariest part, because, again, is it going to hurt? What is it going to be like? Am I going to feel like trapped in my body? Like, if I die like my mom died, in this kind of terrible, horrible way that takes a long time for her to pass away, will I be inside my body and conscious and want to move and get up but won't be able to do it, and that sense of being like trapped in your own body, just really waiting to die. I mean, people talk about the fact that people in comas can hear things, and people that are terminally ill can still hear you and still recognize your voice and recognize what is being said, which is why we talk to her. But it's scary to think about I could be in my own body as a prison for days or weeks or months until I pass away. And then the actual act of passing away, that entire time I'm trapped in my body, will I be in an immense amounts of pain that I will not be able to talk about with the people around me that are trying to take care of me? Will I, not be able to do anything because I won't be able to move, but I will feel everything? I think that's one of the scariest things, is like, if I could feel and hear and, kind of, even if my conscious mind is kind of in the back of my head, any part of me that is still alive as the sentient being that I am, that's stuck inside of basically, a heavy, weighted, physical prison, will that person who I will be at that time feel stuck in that body? And can I let go of my body sooner rather than later, so I'm not stuck in there forever? These are all questions that are like so freaking sad to think about, and this is why I've been struggling. So anyway, I've been trying to turn to my religion to give me some hope that there's something better, not necessarily than here, or I guess maybe not even necessarily better, but just that there is something. And I know that I don't know, but I hope that there's something, and I cling to that. And it gives me some reassurance and some peace of mind to think that, which is part of why I'm religious. And so I was thinking about also this idea of like Judaism likes to, at all costs, well, not all costs, but at most costs, right, want to preserve life. And we're not talking about fetal life, because that's a pro-choice versus pro-life issue. And in fact, in most cases in Judaism, they believe that the mother's life is important, and that life does not begin until you're born. So I'm not talking about that, but I am talking about the fact that Judaism sees life as the most essential thing, and that in most cases, we would like to preserve life. And this got me thinking about, what about hospice? My mom was on hospice. I'm Jewish. If my mom was Jewish and she had Jewish values, like, what would she want me to do? I don't think that it could have gone any differently, regardless of her religion and what she would want. But I wanted to read about hospice and how Judaism feels about hospice, considering the fact that prolonging life, extending life with a high quality of life is something that Judaism strives for. And I know that in certain cases, extending life, if it's not really a quality of life, and if that person is in an immense amounts of pain and is suffering, then I know that Judaism would support a decision to allow the person to go on hospice. And I kind of thought that and knew that already, but I wanted to look up resources. And there's this one story about the Talmud, because again, if you could delay death, significantly, so the person might have multiple years or, more than like a couple of months, then that might be worth it, depending on, of course, the severity of the suffering that happens in between. So you could replace somebody's lungs in a lung transplant if they had lung cancer, but if that person is going to die because that cancer has already metastasized anyway, and they only have 6 months, then why would you want to give them a lung transplant and have them survive 6 months but be in immense amounts of pain because they have had their ribs cracked open and they've had their lungs taken out and replaced with new lungs, and then not only that, but those lungs are going into a diseased body so they could go to somebody else that might be able to, live longer with those lungs, and so it's really a waste of organs in a sense. And at the same time that I know that I fought for the things that I wanted for my mom and her surgeries and all that, and I thought about this thoroughly, it makes sense. Like, why would you want to delay death as opposed to prolong life? And if you could say it that way, if you could say, oh, you're merely delaying death versus you are prolonging life, then I think it's fair to say that, you're probably not going to have a good quality of life. So anyway, the Talmud basically supports this idea. Apparently there was a 2nd century sage named Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian, who the Romans had wrapped in a Torah scroll and then set on fire as a punishment for teaching the Torah. And what happened was a damp piece of wool, so they took some sheepskin and wet it, and they put it on the chest of the rabbi underneath a Torah scroll, so that this would delay or prolong rather the agony of his fire execution. And so the executioner, feeling like he was questioning his motivations, asked the rabbi if removing the wool and allowing the rabbi to die faster would grant the executioner a life in the world to come. The rabbi said yes, and apparently after that, which seems a little extreme, but after that, then the executioner removed the wool and joined the rabbi in his fire blaze. So I guess the executioner was very suicidal, I don't know, but the point is that the executioner was told that he had to kill this rabbi. The rabbi had no other choice. His sentence was death. He was going to get death either way. And so the executioner, being curious, asked, well, if you die faster, I could remove this wool and you'll go ablaze faster and you will hopefully suffer less. Will that then guarantee that I made the right choice in my life, and therefore I will also go to heaven or whatever a better place is? And the rabbi says yes, and then they die together in the blaze. It's interesting to me because it seems silly that the executioner would go off and kill himself like that, but at the same time, he may have had immense guilt. And I think that's really what it's trying to prove, is that he had immense guilt for attempting to delay the death, a painful death, mind you, of somebody that was doing something simply to, to educate other people. And of course, we've always seen that education has been punished, especially if it questions the norm and it doesn't go with what you appreciate or value in your culture. That education and resources are shamed a lot of the time. And for whatever reason, this executioner may have been just an open-minded person and thought, well, if this religion allows me to save myself and go to a better place, and all I have to do is save this rabbi from suffering, then I will take my own life and go with the rabbi. Again, I think it has a lot to do with guilt and making sure that people will use their heart and their mind to make good choices. And I think that when I think about my mom and I think about good choices, I really can't think of any other choices that I could have made or that we could have made as a family to give her a better experience, to have her suffer less. I still cry about it every time that I think about it, obviously, because that's my mom, and I didn't want her to suffer, and I didn't want her to die, but she was given a limited amount of time, and of course, that limited amount of time was a lot shorter than we thought. At least we were able to have the time that we did. And, I believe that she suffered significantly less going into hospice than trying to have all of these things prolong her life. And I think about specifically when she wanted to keep her do not resuscitate, her choice for that, so that she would be resuscitated. I think about that often because she did ask if she could be resuscitated at least one time, and that kills me. And I know it kills my godmom too, because I would give anything in the world to let her have a pain-free resuscitation where she would have a good quality of life. And I know that that just wasn't the case. And I know that that was the right decision, because there's no way having cracked ribs or a crushed stomach or bruises or any of that she would have been in a pain-free space. And even if they did resuscitate her, the rest of her body would have been gone already. Like her mind, for the most part would be gone already. So it wouldn't have done anybody any good. Of course we want to say that I would do anything to save her life. I would have. But there's nothing I could do now. And there was nothing I could do then. And I just have to live with that reality. And so, of course, this comes full circle. This is why I'm thinking about hospice and Judaism and afterlife. Because I go through it and I ask myself, could I have done something better? And no, I know that I couldn't have. But does it really, bother me that I couldn't? And does it keep haunting me? And does it keep coming back? Of course. And so I'm just trying to get out of this traumatic cycle of thinking about these things. And it's been really hard. And it's been a good couple of weeks until recently. So I hope that it gets better, and I just can keep up what I can do with my therapist and grief group and counseling, because I just need it. I need to expel a lot of this negativity and really cope with the new normal, and it's been very hard. Very hard. So I'll check in again soon, I guess.